Can't get enough of Team Pete? Well, you've come to the right place, as each week I interview supporters of Pete Buttigieg, former candidate for President of the United States and current Secretary of Transportation. Hear their personal stories about why they became part of Team Pete and how they started a movement. Join us as we talk Pete, politics, and anything in between. Hi, everyone. My name is Kim Ang, and I am the host of this podcast, Talking with Team Pete. And my guest today is Jeanne Acutanza. Hi, Jeanne.
Hi, Kim.
Thanks for joining me today. And can you just kind of tell us what your Pete story is and how you got involved and where you're from? Let's start with that.
Thanks. I grew up on the East Coast, but have spent most of my life on the West Coast. So right now I live in and around Puget Sound in Edmonds, Washington. I've been working in this area for over 30 years, and I really love. I don't think I'll ever leave Puget Sound, but I am a transportation engineer, and I think now that Pete's the U.S. DOT secretary, I for someone like me, that's really exciting.
Yeah, I'm sure. You guys are probably over the moon, right?
It is pretty over the moon.
Yeah.
Even my work colleagues are a little tired of hearing me talk about Pete. But as an engineer, that was one of the reasons that I really was, just kind of taken by him. When I heard him speak, he was kind of, they talked, I was looking for candidates and someone said, there's this gay millennial mayor. And I thought, oh, that sounds interesting, something different.
Right.
Someone young, a mayor.
Mm-hmm.
And he was speaking at the Seattle Public Library. So I went to see it, just to see what he had to say. Didn't know anything about him, but by the end, and I had bought his book beforehand, started reading it, but by the end of his talk, that was it. I was pretty smitten. I love that he talked about facts and data and analysis, and kind of in an honest way, very authentic way. And when I was standing in line, I kept thinking, to get my book signed, I kept thinking, I have to say something really interesting to this guy. He's interesting. He's really impressive. So when I went up to him, I said, he had been talking about data dashboards, and I said something about, you had me at data driven, and he thought that was funny. But it does embody my appreciation for his understanding of really deep thinking, but also compassion, and and as you know, we've been, I probably fell pretty hard. I've never done anything like this, traveled to places on my own to be with people like Team Pete. So it was quite amazing. And just about everybody I met in this Team Pete journey, like you, has been kind, generous, just lovely people that 2 years ago I didn't even know. So it's just kind of, it's shocking that what a bond I have with people that, I just didn't know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, he has a way of bringing people together that way. And it's like when you meet another Team Pete friend, you feel like they're part of your family instantly, right? Just that initial connection that you have something in common. Yeah, I
was taken by how much you and I connected so much right away in Nevada.
Yeah,
and just I was so impressed that how deeply committed you were, as much as the rest of us.
Yeah, I like a lot of other people have never done anything like this either. So it was kind of pretty easy decision. Just, hey, let's go volunteer for Team Pete. And I felt as well that there's something, that monumental what's happening in our politics, and there's no way that we can let the former guy get another, term in. So my goal was to get this guy out, but at the same time, try to get people to understand about this amazing young man who stole all of our hearts, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
For me, it kind of felt like a spiritual connection when I heard him talk. I don't know how it was with you, but it just kind of resonated with me so much, touched my heart, everything that he said. Just watching a YouTube video of him made me feel that way. And
I remember him and his. You probably watched his announcement too.
No, I actually missed it. I didn't see that part. I think it was after that I got it. I heard about him.
I heard he was going to make his announcement. And all these people were talking about going to South Bend who had never been to Indiana and showing up. But I listened. Felt compelled to listen with all these other people, and so many times just in tears, and you're wondering how can someone touch your heart so much when you're a grown up and mature adult,
right and so you felt that way too many times, just tearing up just listening to him, right? And oh my gosh, and you don't really know why you're tearing up, just that it just like your soul is being hugged.
Or that I think I just was always shocked that it felt like he had a real ability to hear people, and he was listening. He was just a sponge, kind of absorbing what he was seeing and hearing around him. I loved that. I was just struck by his, equating the notion of belonging with out of work, people who had careers in certain areas and those careers were drying up, and it was the same sense of not feeling like they belonged. I think he could have really knit the country together in a really powerful way.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, that was at the climate summit or something like that, right? Where he was talking about that. Yeah, I felt, the way that he explained that was just so amazing to me. Like, did this guy have a degree in psychology too? Because he really, really knows how to connect the dots and just connect with people on that human level. Just astonishing to me.
Yeah, very rare that you find someone that's that gifted.
Yeah. So what made you be all in for Team Pete?
I think I was sitting there and in that line and saying, you had me at data driven, and even when I was saying, I was thinking, do I really mean this? There's a dozen or 25 candidates, right? And all people that I knew and respected, and probably had donated to many of them, like Cory Booker and Kamala Harris. And I even went to see many of them, but it really was Team Pete. I don't think there was any question in my mind that I would, drill in. And there were many times when I stopped myself, because I'm an engineer. I said, "Are you crazy?" I kind of had this conversation with myself. What are you doing? Yeah. You're going to travel to Iowa? And I would go through this critical assessment in my mind. There must be something that I don't like about this guy, or there must be something that's just, he's not perfect in everything. There must be something. And I would go, every time I would go through this list and go, there's got to be something, in a very, it's probably a cynical way, but I really was looking for that thing that would say, aha, he's just a politician. But I never found it. Yeah. And it was always like little things, like how he stands with his hands and silly stuff like that. Like, well, I don't like the way he walks, but I couldn't find anything else. And over again, just reinforced. And then I think I said this in Nevada. It wasn't just Pete, though. It was the people that were in that orbit too. And I remember talking to a woman, introverts for Pete, and Chris, and we had dinner, and she said, and she lives here. We only know each other this way through Pete, and she said, I think it's that some of us are incredibly intuitive to have seen his gifts very early on, like immediately. And I thought, well, that's a compliment to me, I guess.
Yeah, it is.
But it's true.
It's true.
And for all of us, right? I think how we must be pretty intuitive to have seen that gift right away.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. How did you fall upon Pete? I want to hear a little bit about that too.
Well, you met Mary, my partner, so she was the one who told me about him. And there were so many people who dropped their name in the race early on, and she's like, yeah, there's a gay guy in Indiana, a mayor. He's young. He's running for president. And I thought, yeah, okay, right. Not going to happen. And I thought, yeah, I don't think America's ready for that. And I just simply dismissed it. And then one day I just kind of stumbled upon his YouTube. It popped up on my YouTube thingy, and it's like, okay, oh, here's this Pete guy. Okay, I'm going to watch him. And that was the first time I saw him talk at a town hall. And the way that he was answering people's questions just blew my mind. The way that he was able to connect with people is just extraordinary. Like, I don't know how to describe it other than it's like you feel the vibe, the energy, and that connection is so authentic, and it just resonated with my heart so much. Like, and I teared up a couple of times just listening, and I couldn't understand why.
It just seems so crazy.
Yeah. And so after that, I thought, okay, so I started donating, and then I started buying all his merchandise, and then I explained to people that I really hate bumper stickers of any kind, especially political ones. So whenever I see those, I kind of start judging the person who's driving. So
yeah. Why many of us don't have bumper stickers, I think, anymore,
and
right?
So
yeah.
I bought his bumper sticker, I put it on my car, and so to me it's like, that's how much I love this guy, that I'm willing to put his bumper sticker on my car. But before I did that, I Googled how to, take off a bumper sticker. I wasn't quite committed yet. So I was like, okay, I know how to take it off once it's all done. And then I put it on. But yeah, and I think my family was a little like, wow, okay, Kim's never done this before. And it was so fun. I would do it all over again the next time he runs.
You're right. That's I think I'm like you, and like so many in the Pete world, that no regrets, not even a tiny one, and not even a little. And thinking that, like, I traveled to these places, went to Iowa twice. I've never been to Iowa. And, just some of the crazy, and collecting signatures in our state, and, just going to bat, and never thinking twice about some of the actions that had to be done. Like, we need to be at this event. Okay, we're going, and everything else had to take a back seat to that. And I don't think I don't regret any of it, or certainly would do it all over again.
Yeah. So how did your family feel about that? I mean, were they supportive or thought you were cuckoo?
It's really interesting. I started to watch Pete, and I started to get involved in his local campaign with a couple of other people. So kind of found them and started trying to get organized locally. And I think our first event was June 2019. It was a Pride event in Capitol Hill in Seattle. And a lot of people were just learning about him. So we had a lot of interest, and, we had a ton of merch that we handed out to people, but we weren't collecting signatures or anything yet. But my husband was like, I like him, but I like them all. I'm like, are you not listening? Are you not paying attention? That's what I kept thinking. Am I the only one who sees this? And he would even tell me, my coworkers really like Pete. And I'm like, what does that tell you? People that you really respect, people that are Republicans or, just other politicians locally. And my mom too, she was like, well, he's fine. But she kind of kept saying, it's not his turn. And I kept thinking, that's great. That's crazy. I would never want to say that someone's too young to do this, especially someone like Pete, who showed over and over again that I think he had the credibility, the smarts to do the job.
Yeah.
And I never question that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I never had doubts.
I know. It's kind of, and I felt like sometimes I had to pull back too and realize about my obsession. Is it getting a little out of hand?
Right.
And I remember, like, even on my Facebook, posting things and like, okay, I think I'm posting way too many Pete stuff. I'm a little obsessed. Maybe I should slow down here.
I tried to be very cautious about that. That's really smart. So what about Mary?
She was pretty all in too, but I think my obsession was a little more than hers. Although she was pretty vocal too, and tried to get people to vote for him and stuff like that. And we did a lot of canvassing, volunteered for the local Silicon Valley group, and then we did some.
Nice.
And then we set up our own table at the farmers market every Sunday. So we were the only ones there.
Really? That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, the things that you never ever did in your life before.
Never on a Sunday.
Right.
Like, why? Every Sunday we brought our table.
Get out of bed.
Yeah.
Right.
And that part wasn't as scary for me as knocking on people's doors. Because I know how it is when people come to my door. I don't like to open my door to people. So. Yeah.
I had to kind of, I always thought of like putting on a warrior face when I was knocking doors for Pete. I had to be another person because it might, like you said, it wasn't not my norm of wanting to knock doors, but knowing that this is important, this is how it's got to be done. But the other stuff, the farmers markets, that didn't feel so foreign, and I always ran into some people would always come up and want to chat.
Right. Yeah, so I felt like it's less intrusive that you're there, and if people want to come to your table and chat with you, then you can open the discussion. Whereas knocking on door, I was terrified, and the partner I had with me, she did most of the work, so I just kind of stood in the background, like, okay, you go, ring the doorbell, and I'll stay back here.
That's good. I was impressed by California's efforts. They were out in forests. I felt in our state I feel like he would continuously come up in the top three of candidates, but I feel like the establishment was not there for him. Yeah. And that I think that's part and parcel to how things went. That he didn't quite have it wasn't his turn.
Yeah, so, that's really unfortunate. Yeah. because he could have really brought this country together. I mean, look at our politics now and how toxic the environment is. Just this us versus them mentality, and if you're not us, you're the enemy. And I feel like had he, or even in 2024, if they make him the nominee, I think that would be so incredible. That would be a smart move, actually, because I feel like he sort of has his credentials now, being, the Secretary of Transportation. People know his name. People know what he's capable of, how well he communicates, and his ability to just be such a nice guy. He never says anything bad about anybody, and I think that will help bring the country together. So,
yeah, and I think I think going state by state and giving out raise grants and other grants, and nobody would have ever expected a transportation secretary to have as much cachet, except for Team P. Right. I'm sure when they announced he was Secretary of Transportation, beyond being over the moon, I think a whole bunch of us kind of, how are we going to help him? What are we going to do to make, this landmark? Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of us that support him and want and promote on things like Twitter or whatnot, or through Build the Era, which is another small group. But he doesn't really need us as much as I think we're there ready to support him. But I don't think I've ever watched a transportation bill go through like the vote on C-SPAN. This is the first time. And we were all live tweeting
that's
it.
Funny.
It was hilarious. Because it meant so much, and I think we all felt like if he had that platform, it was really going to launch him. His opportunity to meet and greet, and it's always hilarious to see when he goes to any state. I think if he came here, a whole bunch of people would be standing in line to get a picture with him.
Yeah.
And not me, everybody else. The former people who maybe had looked him over.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really happy that he's getting the recognition that he deserves, and the fact that people are finally recognizing his talent and what he's able to do.
Yeah, I agree.
So what do you think about his position so far? How would you grade him so far?
I think he's done an incredible job with the department, USDOT, and I've spent a lot of time in this industry and know people that work for him, work at FHWA and FTA, and all of them say the same thing. He is cutting through like the red tape, and he's really trying to make the department not only more efficient, but, for example, these great grants that go out, these are big infrastructure grants, and they are prizes to local agencies. And if you ever fill out one of these grant applications, they are head scratchers. They're hard to read. They're, these notice of funding opportunity, they're long and unwieldy and really difficult to cut through. But he's made it so much more streamlined. I don't know if it's him, but it is certainly with his direction to say people have to understand how to, get through this. It used to be impossible to read, even just to read this NOFO grant. It was like something where the document is something like you had written it, and then someone just dumped a bunch of more words on top of it, and then the next time it was advertised, they just dumped more words on it. So it just became some kind of, it's just unwieldy. But they've made it more streamlined. They tell you, there's a scorecard in the back that says, and we'll even tell you if you're competitive. I mean, it's unheard of. And then the other things, all the things he wants to do in transportation are leaps and bounds beyond anything anybody's done for decades in transportation related to climate and sustainability and equity.
Yeah, equity.
It's a real shocker.
That's a huge thing in terms of. I remember him talking about the way that roads, bridges, like they divide a community versus bringing them together. And I remember listening to that part of his talk, and then of course everybody like had to say, what, so roads are racist now and all this stuff, and it's just like, that is not what he said. And so his ability to explain the way that that whole wrong side of the tracks thing, the way he explains that is just so amazing to me. It's like, yeah, you totally get it.
And the interesting thing is, when he got this job a year and a half ago, a bunch of us in Build the Air were, the first thing was explaining what his job was to all of his Pete fans and telling them, this is what the department does, and this is what the Secretary of Transportation does, because I think everybody had this, they didn't know what, they had never paid attention to what the Secretary of Transportation does. Why would we? And they've never had money before like this. But Pete knew it all from being a small town mayor. How the money comes to you, all the strings you have to go through, what projects are going to compete well and not. But one of the first things we did was I think we did a series on the history of we did the different facets of transportation, but I did a quick history. And even me, just thinking about it, I thought, here's the history of transportation is it supports the economy. It's there to support the economy. The department is there to support safety, but the way transportation has developed across the country has been incredibly unfair and unequitable, driven by capitalism, and has created harm along the way. Starting with the railroads, taking land that belonged to tribes, and highways that divided communities and took cheaper land and so on and so forth. So it was interesting. We went through this history, and as I was thinking about the history, I was thinking these things, and I was so just impressed that Pete knew it all and put in place ways to make these changes. Again, it just spoke to my heart of like, oh, that's exactly what we should be doing.
And it just seems like he is such a visionary thinker that, thinking, beyond, the next decade or so, what's this gonna be like for generations to come, right? We're not just putting a Band-Aid on it, which is what a lot of politicians like to do. And so his is more getting to the root of the problem and trying to fix it.
For the next generation. Yeah, I think there's something small, and it's not really talked about much, and it's a kind of a small thing, but future for the future of work and future workforce for transportation. A lot of people in transportation are retiring. Those people who are in STEM fields end up in tech world. And in the industry itself, the transportation planners, engineers, designers, has really gone through a metamorphosis from lack of funding, but also just an attrition. And every agency I know is, while we want to deliver this big program, and this program is, long waited for, there, like a lot of things, the workforce isn't there. And there's a lot of issues of how to bring young people up fast enough so that we can, fill these needs and as people retire. And everybody I know in this industry is really concerned about this, but you see Pete addressing it in workforce development, finding workforce development grants. When you see those, I love when he has these technical training programs, teaching kids to be pilots, or getting young people interested in all the trades that go with transportation. That's mind blowing to me.
Right.
That someone gets that.
And that's the whole thing with the people complaining about the summer travels and airlines and all this stuff, right? Supply chain and all this stuff. But it's like, okay, the same thing. The pilots are retiring, right? So the workforce is dwindling. And so how do you create the new generation of people? We don't want to make it so that the standards are lower. I think that was one of the things I read, was to make the standards lower, to make the retirement age longer. But well, I mean, that's nice, but we don't want to make standards lower, especially when it comes to pilots.
It's really hard. I've never seen, I mean, everything he's done has just been remarkable, out of the box, very insightful, something that past transportation secretaries have not done. I would say the last, innovative, like Anthony Fox in the Obama administration, and Ray LaHood tried to create these, new communities and smart growth. But Pete is, leaps and bounds beyond that, and he knows something where the exchange of information between the ports and carriers and shippers, creating this data that is shareable. That's like,
it wasn't
that's
shareable
remarkable.
Before.
It's a
gosh.
No, I mean, it's these ports all compete. It's because it's economic. It's all very competitive, and so a lot of that information isn't shared, or it's it should be, but it's not. And it's led to supply chain challenges that have not. This is not new. A big thing is our ports open long enough because a truck that comes, can they turn around and take a load out? Well, if the port's only open a certain number of hours, they drop a load, and then there's an issue of where do they park overnight.
Oh, wow.
So the issues are sort of head scratchers that could be logistically dealt with. Same with the railroads, and because these are private entities in some way,
it's hard.
He's playing higher level chess, and he knows he's got some real challenges, but he's breaking through, getting people to the table, talking about how it could be beneficial, talking about putting vets and younger, people under 21 as truck drivers, finding new ways to put these truck drivers, in the field. It's amazing.
Yeah, he's a problem solver, isn't he? God.
Someone, I don't know how you feel about this, but someone said, and I'd love to hear this. It's like, will he ever want to leave transportation?
Because he's doing such a great job, right?
And having so much fun doing it, I bet. So.
Oh, I know, that would be hard. That would be hard.
So are you going to be there the next time? When he
of course
runs again.
Of course,
I know.
For sure, no question
Not even
about
a question.
it. Yeah, be there and ready.
I think the nice thing, Kim, like through you and so many others, we've kept those connections.
I think that's one of the greatest things that came out of Pete coming into our orbit, right? Because without him, we wouldn't have made all these friendships and connections. And it's one of those things where you don't realize how much you needed this community until it's actually there, right? And this whole sense of
That's
belonging,
exactly.
and I love his rules of the road, and it's just, I don't know, he's just so incredible. There's, I don't know, there's so many words to describe it, but
And
sometimes he leaves me speechless.
yeah, and I think there's more he could do too. That's the other thing outside of transportation. Like, I wish he had done the national service. That was when he had come out with the his idea for national service.
That would have been really awesome. Yeah, yeah, and that's one of the things I love about his campaign is this public service and getting people involved and community, bringing people together, and this is how you make your community, your country better, right? You inspire each other to be better. You lift each other up. That's how you make America great.
Yeah. There's more in the giving than the taking. And we've had enough of the taking part from the other guy.
Right?
The former guy gave us a master class in that. So, but Pete is definitely the antidote for that.
It's been quite a crazy week, hasn't it?
It's a shocker. But I just wanted to share that I wore my South Bend for Pete shirt. So
nice.
And just talking about the community. I mean, these were the things that would astound me. You and Mary, meeting you guys in Reno, marching in Reno at the Women's March. But just as I was leaving, Susan DeVoe said, I was talking to her and I saw she's from Indiana. I said, oh, I like that shirt. Or, we'd all love to have a South Bend shirt. She goes, oh. And then she called me or texted me later and said, that shirt is waiting for you at the hotel. Just pick it up. It's not clean. Recognize that it's not clean, but it's yours if you want to pick it up. And I'm like, I went to the hotel and the woman's like, what?
Oh, that's funny.
And here it is. It's a prized possession.
Really nice.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Well, do you think he's gonna want to run soon, or do you think he's pretty happy in his job right now to really think about that?
I think there is one. I think he will be loyal to, I think he put Joe Biden in office. He was a real help asset. Without Pete, it would have been a real mess, right? When I think about that kind of chess play, that was tough. So I do think he will, remember they always said, he'll always do the right thing.
Yeah.
I think if the party figures out that he's what they need,
which we all know they do desperately.
we've already got it. Yeah, we've passed that. We passed that a long time ago. I think they would, if they asked him, if they tapped him, he would do it in a heartbeat, and I think he'd be great. My mom, I don't know how about your family, but my mom was always kind of, it's not his turn, but now she's like, Biden came to Oregon, and where was Pete? How come he didn't come with him? I'm like, travel together. He doesn't have to come with Joe Biden. Because we were all looking for Pete. I'm like, you had the president, Mom.
That's funny.
The president came to Oregon.
That's funny. Great that she's a big Pete supporter. She's converted.
She's converted.
Yeah, my parents are registered Republicans, and I convinced them to vote for Pete in the primary. But, the more that I speak to them now, I realize that their politics is more along the lines of democratic values. And I think the reason that they voted or they registered as Republicans when they became a citizen, probably when we came to America in the 80s when Reagan was in office. So maybe that's why they kind of just stuck with that. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I regret to say that about my parents, but but they, yeah.
Well,
they realize what a great talent he is, and my mom was disappointed when he kind of stopped his campaign, but she understood too, and they all said, well, maybe it's not his time, which obviously that's what happened.
but at least I just hope there's enough people that would not want to put another Republican in office for a long time.
Well, the way that the Republican Party is going right now, I think they may self-destruct. It is.
It's a real train wreck.
And they just seem to get even more radical by the day, it seems. It's kind of scary. Scary how far out there
it is, and
beyond logic they're willing to go.
Oh. Yeah, the court.
How did you feel about that decision?
I know. I think we all assumed that it could happen, but it was a shocker to see it happen. But as Trump was stalking the court, I think it was, that was the long play. That was the long game for that. And I think everybody understood that that's what that was all about. Criminal, just criminal. And it breaks my heart to see. I saw one of the senators, Tammy Baldwin, say, was it Tammy Baldwin? That they were going to have a legislation for gay marriage,
to codify
and
marriage equality.
Yeah, codify. And for marriage equality and racial, just to say that you can marry someone outside your race because that's what they're going to come for, and it's just insane. But it's good because she'll.
Well, I thought they voted on that already, and it didn't pass. Is she? Oh, okay.
I think she's going to bring it back.
Maybe with new, with the new Congress.
I think. Maybe, and I think she was thinking she would codify same-sex marriage, but also bring it together with.
With interracial marriage.
So put it together with a loving decision freedom to marry, right?
Yeah,
and just put it all under one bucket. And
right.
Broaden the support
the Republicans still voted no to it. So. Yeah.
We'll see what they do next. Yeah. Well, I think they'll be in more trouble if they say that, interracial marriages should be banned.
Yeah.
What? How far back are we, how far are we willing to
But I don't think a lot of voters are aware of that those two things are connected. I think most of what the media has been saying is that it's all about same-sex marriage versus same-sex marriage and interracial marriage. So they kind of left that out and just made it be about same-sex marriage and all this homophobia. Dog whistling to the right about it. So that's the Republicans' reasoning for voting no on it. But they didn't talk about it being interracial marriage too. That's the problem.
I think she's ready to link it up, and that would make a lot of sense because they're based on the same. They're predicated on the same basis of privacy. Well, so I hope they do.
If they bring it about again, hopefully that'll happen. But I know.
What a disappointment. So,
Oh,
how is your podcast
it's going
going?
good. Yeah, I've had
How's it?
a few people that I've done so
Good.
far, and it's been really nice just hearing people's stories, and I feel like I want to do something that will give people a space where, we talk about positive things and lift each other up and talk about how great Pete is and how inspiring he is. And maybe hopefully new Pete fans will tune in and hear that as well and get to know about him more and why we support him and stuff like that. So, yeah.
I
Thank you.
think that's brilliant. I
It's
I do. Yeah.
hopefully more people will know about it and tune in. But I think my ultimate goal is just to get people's stories out there because I love hearing people's stories,
Yeah.
especially how they got involved in Team Pete. I mean, there's a lot of similarities between all of us, right? Especially the people who constantly say, I've never done this before, right? And so it's like, yeah, you step out of your comfort zone because this guy inspires you so much to take that step. And I don't know of any other politician who can do that for people.
I also think that the people who, like you, who got him right away, like introverts too, are those people who've been waiting for someone that's, this compassionate, is wicked smart, just thoughtful. I think I think that's why we gravitated so quickly.
Crazy
And we're
thing.
willing to do crazy. I know. And some of the things I think, like the birthday party, I thought I don't think I ever thought this is nuts, but but when you think back on it, you're like, oh, that was really interesting. It was great to have had that space to do it.
Very fun, very fun.
Those
And
fun
just
things.
meeting new people, I think, was the whole point of it all. I was like, why are we driving to Reno?
I know some like a couple crazy other things besides this crazy shirt. There's a woman, and we only know each other from on Twitter. But she's young, from your Bay Area, and she's Filipino. And I'm always like, she said, I think I'm going to Iowa, and where should I stay? And I'm like, you're going to stay with me. Because it was like last minute, and it was just kind of fun. And she stayed with me another time. I did not know her, but I thought I better reach out.
Keep an eye on her.
I just wanted to make sure she had a safe place to go.
Your mommy instinct kicked in,
but
huh?
It was.
Yeah.
Listen,
great.
child.
Oh, yeah.
By the end, she called me auntie.
Cute. Yeah, I remember you sent me a photo when you were in Iowa for the caucus, and you guys were canvassing that morning, I think, and then you ran into Pete or something like that, right?
Oh, well, we canvassed in the morning. No, we didn't see him. We saw a cutout maybe of him, but we did go to the event. We did go to the after the caucus was over, they were going to announce the results.
Yeah,
and that whole process was a mess. But but he came out, and when I left, when I'd gone to the LJ, the Liberty and Justice Dinner in November, my friend and I were talking, and I said, we have to come back in February when he wins the caucus. And she was like, really? I said, sure, we should come back. So we ended up going back, and it
Yeah, yeah.
It was insane, but it was great.
Yeah. Gosh, I
crazy
mean,
things.
you think about it, what would have happened had they not have that stumble, with the results and what could have been, right? I don't know.
He could have, yeah. I think if that wasn't such a debacle, he could have
Yeah.
launched pretty well, much better out of
Right.
Iowa, maybe won New
Yeah.
Hampshire, and then maybe given pause to the political
Yeah.
gods in South Carolina.
Yeah.
So.
I know. Sometimes I think about that and it's like, what could have been?
When did you find out? I have to ask this story too. When
It
did
was
you
right after
find out he's dropping
I got
out?
finished with the farmer's market that Sunday. I came home. Mary was actually in San Diego, so I did the whole farmer's market by myself, and there was one lady in the table next to me, and she was a Bernie supporter, and so she had a table for him. But yeah, I came home, I was like all excited, right? Thinking, okay, the primaries is Tuesday. And by then we had already voted by mail for him, so it's just like,
right.
Yeah, it was pretty devastating. And I remember watching his speech and just crying, like tears were coming down so hard. I couldn't stop crying. It was just like, oh my gosh, what did we just miss out on? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. These are epochs. They're long between these elections. It just feels like a long, long time.
I know.
So.
But then once I heard he was going to be nominated for Secretary of Transportation, I was like, huh? But then after a while, I read about what it was all about, and then of course I had to listen to your podcast, and like all that stuff just went over my head. But it's like, wow, there's a lot that goes on in transportation. Like, wow, yeah,
it's crazy, yeah. But I did enjoy. What I enjoyed was talking to my friends in transportation about the infrastructure, and that was really fun. And I think they all see what a remarkable candidate he was.
Yeah.
So I think that's great too.
I know, the most famous transportation secretary ever, right? Everybody wants a part of him.
Anybody, yeah. He's got a line of people waiting for him, and the media attention he gets is
even better when he goes on Fox News and destroys them, right? He is.
I love that. Yeah, he's a hot ticket, and in our professional society, like American Society of Civil Engineers or Institute of Transportation Engineers, he is he is the number one person you want for all of those like techie conferences. He's like who everybody wants to have as their keynote speaker.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
His dance card's pretty full.
I love that he's getting all this attention. He really deserves it. Now people can finally catch on. Hey, we've been telling you this the whole time.
We were intuitive enough to see that he was the real deal. No, this was so fun. It's just great seeing you in real, sort of in real life.
Was glad that we had the chance to meet in Reno. So thank you for spending the time with me and sharing your story and your insights into transportation. And so you'd give Pete an A+ so far? A++?
Oh.
Extra credit.
Plus, whatever. Yeah, extra credit. Yeah. For sure.
Yes.
He's doing a great job.
If you've enjoyed this conversation, please be sure to subscribe so this channel can grow and I'll be able to share more stories with you each week. Thank you for listening.